the seagulls follow the trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
And as we say now in my country, they brought the bus and they left the bus in front of the goal.
And the guy's talking absolute nonsense. Never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
I'm telling you, don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, good morning. It's 8:36 a.m, so we're not too late today. Well, I say we. I'm not too late today. As always in the breakfast bar, joined chumpy as ever, Steve O'Matt playing guitar when I jumped in the studio. How are we?
All right, mate. All right. You've done me a favour because I'm back shift today, and I was yesterday, and I just lay in my fucking scratcher. For ages, so you've done me a favour. You got me up, mate. Bit of life around me.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. I think it's easier to get up as the summer mornings are coming in. I'm just like, come on. I like it. I like it with the light mornings, mate. I hate all that darkness. See over winter, I hate all that, man. I'm like, I don't know. Breakfast bars. Whose idea was this? See, now I'm like, that's quite nice being up at this time. I've got work in just over an hour and a half. So we're just under an hour and a half, sorry. So it'll be all good, and good to see so many people on the bus already. Before we start, we will do all that good stuff. All that good stuff means do hit the subscribe button if you've not already. If you want to give a wee like, a share, slag my hair, then feel free. If you want to become a Bhoycie Bus member, it's $1.99 a month. It's absolutely optional. All the content's free, but you could become a Bhoycie Bus member like Patrick McLaughlin, Les Watts, Joe Brown, Celts on the Hill, Martin Kay, Gary Brown, Ali, Alan Woods, and so on. Thanks to all you. It is very much appreciated on the bus. And a big shout out to our sponsors as well, because we do have new sponsors, and it is ED Pharmacy. They will keep you up all night long if that's what you're after. Make sure to check out edpharmacy.co.uk for any of your erectile dysfunction needs, if you've got any, or if you just fancy a better time than normal. You know what I mean? edpharmacy.co.uk and use the code BUS10 at the checkout, and you will get 10% off. Any flop signings you can think of at Celtic, Steve, over the years, mate? Who comes to mind? Didn't he be a Reggie Blinker? Go to edpharmacy.co.uk.
John Joe Kerry.
John Joe Kerry. Well, we're going to have a wee word about that era as well today, so that's quite a nice wee segue in there. First things first, We know who our opponents are this weekend, Steve-O. And it was very, very interesting this week. I've not forgotten anything, have I? Pie Sports, 12.5% off at the checkout, Bus 1888. Right, we're there. We know who our opponents are this weekend, and Jonathan, again, coining funny terms. It's not something or nothing. It's now nothing or nothing this weekend for them, which is a fantastic way of putting it. I ended up busting into a bit of Monty Python, mate. Do you know what I mean? I was, the end of the Monty Python was that, you came in with nothing, you left with nothing. What you got? Nothing. It's a bit like that for them these days. But with that in mind, obviously brings its own challenges. And something I found very interesting was on Monday on, I keep talking about PLZ soccer these days. I don't know what's happening to me. I didn't like it. But they actually, to be fair to them, kind of took a different approach to talking about the penalty decisions. And I thought it was pretty refreshing. They did have to comment on how bizarre it is that in a whole season, which we've spoke about, as you know, Steve-O, you've done various PMP shows, etc., how often VAR has become a topic of conversation, how often VAR has ended up re-refereeing certain instances in games, and how often penalties have been given. And that doesn't mean just against Celtic, by the way. We might be a Celtic channel, but that is not the angle I'm trying to go from here. I found it interesting, though, that Peter Martin and Tam McManus, although I think Big Peter maybe kind of shat it towards the end and kind of pulled it back a bit. Tam McManus certainly didn't, and he's never played for Celtic, so let's not get the bias stuff out of the way. But they were marvelling at how long it's been since Rangers have given away a penalty. The fact they've not given one penalty away this year, Steve-O, 51, I think it is, league games now since they've given away a penalty. Are these things that can play a factor this Sunday? Now, this is why we're talking about it. We've got a big game of the weekend at Ibrox. People think we're obsessed. We're bringing it up because it's all relevant right now. There was a media story on Monday highlighting it. We play Rangers on Sunday. We're bang here in the middle on the Thursday. On the Bhoycie Bus, we're going to address it as well. What do you think, Steve?
Well, it's actually, I'm kind of glad I was looking for it here. I get sent something this morning about this, and obviously it kind of puts into perspective as to where we are.
Okay.
So I'll just quickly read this out. It gets sent to me via one of my chat groups, and it says, since Christie missed a penalty in the 2-1 defeat, 29th of December 2019, Rangers have conceded 3 league penalties. 21st of April 21, away to St Johnstone, brackets 1-1. Game 35, after they'd already clinched the league. It was the first, by that point, they'd conceded in 44 matches. Second penalty, 21st of August 21, away at Ross County in a 4-2 win. Game 3 of the season, when they were 2 goals ahead. Then January, the 19th of January 22, away to Aberdeen at 1-1, game 20. This prompted an 8-point letter of complaint to the SFA, and they have not conceded a league penalty since.
Wow. I mean,
that was a wee thread that was on online, so I'll send it in our group. Actually, I just got it this morning on here.
I find that fascinating because sometimes when it comes to certain stats, I think people can dive too much into them and you can read too much into stats and then let your eyes lie and stuff like that. You know what you're watching. Yeah. That's damning though, Steve-O. That is damning, mate. And I think what's your thoughts on it, mate?
Do you know what? It's wild, and I think that as much as I don't really have much time for PLZ soccer, and it's one of these sort of fringe shows where it's kind of trying to be a wee bit edgy, I think, at times, but it actually makes a fairly good assessment, and it asks a kind of open question that folk haven't been doing. So I would say sort of fair play to them for that. But, he mentions, does it become a point where referees are intimidated or scared? And possibly, I mean, there's got to be, in my opinion, something in that. There's got to be a reason why. And this isn't, as you said, paranoia or conspiracies or whatever. You said, you look at it, your eyes don't lie, you can see things. And now, I might be wrong, I'm sure there'll be someone out there. And again, if they're Rangers fans and they want to use or disprove this argument and say it's all conspiracy, I would go out and say I'd be happy to predict that probably you'll not find another team in any other league in the UK that have such a run of not conceding a penalty, such as how much of an anomaly or an abnormality or whatever term you want to put on it. It's legitimately bonkers to think, because there's been enough incidents that very clearly are offences in the box. Let's face it, handballs, players getting brought down, and it never seems to happen. So, you know, I've never been one for shouting conspiracy and cheat and all that kind of stuff, but surely you've got to look at it. If you're the SFA or whoever it is, SPFL, and it keeps coming up, would you not at the back of your mind be thinking, that is a bit unusual, that? You know,
I think you're right.
It's insane. Like, when I read that out there, that's absolutely mind-boggling. And the thing here is it's not a case of saying, oh, it's just because we get such a good defence or we get this, that, or the next thing. There are ample times in games where they're under the cautions to say we've seen things in the box. But you need to flip that and say, well, how many penalties have they conceded in Europe? It's not real different. You know, they're getting in these same positions in Europe, but they are conceding penalties, and actually quite a few. So it is laughable. I can see why other people are bringing it up, and certainly, you know, Barry Robson at the weekend brought it up, and it was a very good point, because when you watch the foul for Goldson on Duke, it's pretty damning, isn't it? It's not even up for debate.
I think the thing is with Barry Robson, it's, if he's anything like what he was like as a Celtic player, I know it was maybe an 18-month sort of time that he had, because I think when I thought he was going to really kick on, he got a really bad injury, remember, and he's sort of, so he was there for half the season and then a full season, and then the next one he was kind of a bit injured. But Barry Robson, my memory of him at Celtic was he was absolutely full of tenacity, and he was someone who didn't shirk away for a challenge. I've got a feeling he's going to spice this league up, Steve, because the way and the matter-of-fact manner he did it at the presser was actually quite refreshing as well. You know, he did it in a way where he was just like flipping it straight back to the judges. Was VAR there?
It was Slacken-esque, I thought.
Aye, it was good. And maybe you get those influences. That wouldn't surprise me. Robert Carmichael's given a different side of the argument now. Robert's a Rangers fan. I don't know Robert from Adam, but he jumped on the bus a few weeks ago, and to be fair, he has been championing the channel a lot on Twitter and stuff. So big thanks, Robert, for that. He says he really enjoys it. He thinks it's decent banter. And like I say, we don't try to be over like singing about it. Of course, we're going to have wee nibbles at our rivals. That's what it's all about, mate. I didn't realise apparently Celtic did it in 2014-15, didn't concede a penalty. I don't know about that, but I would imagine, is that not, what season would that have been? 14-15, was that Lennon's last season? No, that would have been Dyler's first season. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the league wasn't up to much then. I don't know. It's maybe 90% possession for Celtic in every game then. I don't know. I think what the challenge that's highlighted was the Duke one, and maybe it could have been a free kick. I think the fact is, for it to be nothing, you know, is just utterly bizarre when you watch that back. And again, the reason that we talk about it is because when we go to Ibrox this weekend, there is an opportunity for Celtic to go this season unbeaten against them. There is an opportunity for Mickey Beale to be by that point. And I think he is the focal point right now of our attention when we think about Rangers, because I think it's fair to say their playing staff is going to change massively, as well as all the boardroom, right? We'll talk about that in a bit. But I think when it comes to them, we don't want to give him, if you like, that win. Do you know what I mean? We don't want him to get a win. But we're going to need to be able to go into these games without getting rev fairly, particularly when maybe Celtic aren't in the best of forms right now. We're not the best version of Celtic right now, I think, on the park that we've seen at spells this season. Notwithstanding that, we still tend to get the results. But when it comes to these games, is a referee going to have, you like this, the courage of his convictions, Steve-O, to be able to give a penalty for Celtic this weekend? Or do you think there could be another example where we get the tinfoil hats out and are speaking about all this stuff again come Saturday night?
I think it's if you're going to give, excuse me, if you're going to give if a penalty is going to be awarded, right, firstly, as we said before, it needs to be treated on its merits. We're making an assumption that something might happen and it won't be given, right? So, let's just take it as it comes. But I do think, as big as an opportunity as it is for Rangers, and in my opinion, need a win, I'll also will get in at some point. I think, as I've said time and time again, they're in a win-win situation in this game, and I've got reasons for that opinion. But equally, if you're a referee, if you're going to have an opportunity to give Celtic a penalty at Ibrox, then this is the one, because it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it's the best time. If it's going to happen, it'll happen in that game. I would rather bet that there'd be a chance of a penalty if we got an opportunity in that game than there would be first win next season.
Prior. I get that.
Or first win next season, and that's where it starts to come. And then I wouldn't be surprised, dare I say it, if things start to even themselves out. Come last couple of games,
Yeah, I said this at the weekend.
As daft as that sounds, I know it sounds. I've said I don't like conspiracies and that. I'm just stating a fact. There's literally nothing to play for now. You could give 5 penalties against them one game. It doesn't matter.
Aye,
nobody cares.
Steve, well, let's flip it into a Celtic prism. Just be honest. Honest answer. Do you believe 3 months ago that Hearts defender's challenge gets overturned from a yellow to a red card?
Nah.
I don't think they're doing it 3 months ago. I think there's a body evidence to suggest we weren't getting decisions then. And I think you're right. When all's said and done, and there doesn't seem to be as much riding on it, or nothing riding on it, as you rightfully point out, then they can then even it all out, and by the end of the season you go, well, look, you've got X amount of decisions, you got the same. Things like that. I just hope that's not the case. David Ferguson, looks like the postie has pinched my bumblebee top. Mate, it was 100% sent out. You were part of it. I left you a wee note inside it, David. I wrote you. And it was funny because in the note that I said to you, I went, look forward to meeting you at the next live event. And then you tweeted me saying, like about an hour after I wrote that, and you tweeted me saying, look forward to the shirt now. It gives us an excuse to get a night out. So I promise you, it should be there, mate. I've not got. I'm looking around the house. There's none left. I was at the post office for about an hour, just handing him parcel after parcel. He was nearly shut as well. He was raging. I was like, hiya, there's another one. I really hope you get that, pal. I really hope. I sent it first class as well, so it should have been with you by now. Steve-O, you got yours. Everyone else seems to have got theirs, so that's a concern. Anyway, let's play a wee bit of hypothetical chat now, Steve-O. We can afford to do that. We're champions, mate. Champions. Yeah. We've not got to worry till the 3rd of June for our next meaningful fixture. Although, come Saturday, it'll ramp right up, and I'm sure it'll be the most important game of my life all over again. But there's right now, it seems to be a departure across the city of board member after board member after board member after board member, finance director, someone who's been there for 20 years, former chairman, etc. It's all happening now. Mark was in the group chat, and he described it as fan power at its best. He thinks that Rangers are actually listening to their fans, and Celtic board didn't want to. I can see that argument. And what I would say is, let's flip it and say fans had got their way when Sharkgate and all that was carrying on, Steve-O. The thing is, it's great to get people that you don't want in situ out, but what's your plan thereafter? How do you know who's coming in is up to the job? What influence can fans have on those who do then take up position? Are they going to be capable? In Rangers' case, for example, these 8-9 different people that it seems to be that they'll need to replace in the boardroom and off the park in various roles. How good are they going to need to be to replicate a European final? Stopping the Celtic team winning a league where Celtic seems to have its mojo back to where it was prior to, whilst we're in the middle of the 10 in a row charge. Celtic seem to have found that again. To stop that took £150 million of money, 170 million deficit or something like that. But it got them also to a European final, which has to be congratulated. I mean, you've got to be careful what you wish for sometimes now. I can't be a hypocrite. I didn't want Peter Lawwell to come back in any sort of way. I don't think he ever left really, but I didn't want him to be getting any other job titles. I also, at the time where the 10-year campaign was absolutely imploding, Steve-O, I probably was one that was going, they're dinosaurs, get them out, etc. But you've got to remember, what is it you're replacing that then with? It's great saying cheerio to people you don't want to be there, Steve-O.
Yeah.
But who is it you say hello in their case too? Because it could be anyone walking in there. And let's be honest, the track record they've had of people in their boardroom being pretty dodgy since since 2012 has been very surprising and quite eyebrow raising, to say the least, when you look at some of the characters that have been there. Do you really want to take that risk again?
I think what Mark said, and I was supposed to reply, but obviously saying it in here, I think the situation across the road it's a combination of two things. I think it is, to an extent, fan power, and they're getting a reaction out of their protest and everything else. But I also think there will be an element of people saving face and getting out. And I think the share issues to raise X amount of money, for me, is very much indicative of that, because the people that left thereafter are people who had knowingly put money in. So to me, that was, there's your money and now you can go, because you wouldn't leave a board if you'd put money in knowing their track record on the hope that they're just going to give you at some point down the road, So I think it might work out for them. They might get people into it. They'll probably fucking Dave King back in. Let's face it, he's only person that's idiotic enough to just come back, and because he likes to hold court. But it's fun because they're leaving. In my opinion, they might on face be strengthening by getting these characters out, but these characters are weakening them on the way out with these share issues and taking money out, But we us, as our board a bit, long in the tooth, maybe a bit sort of, crusty around the edges and stuff. Well, these guys have been in situ for, about 20 years in some cases. And, we always try to say we should refresh and be forward thinking in that. And I think to an extent, we're maybe getting a wee element of the shake-up with the likes of like Nicholson. He's come in and he's got, obviously, he knows what's went before him, and he's just kind of adapting it a wee bit. But I think there's a lot of positivity and longevity in folk that know what they're doing. And I know our board get heavily criticised. And listen, this summer isn't going to be any different to that unless they obviously do the investments probo. The season's not even finished, and already I'm seeing complaints of players getting sold and there'll be no investment and we'll no do anything and we'll no grow the squad. Well, again, it's just total speculation. They've got an opportunity and a chance to prove people wrong. But if you ask me what I would I prefer a mass exodus and trying to build it from the ground up? Or would I rather have the status quo with one or two wee shifts sideways or out the door? Then I would choose the latter, absolutely.
Football's very emotive though. And it's easy for us to gloat right now, right? Because we are at the top of the league and stuff, and that's just our gift to be able to do that. But recent memory reminds us of the mire that we felt we were in, Steve-O. And it's an emotive thing. You feel like, get everyone out. I can't believe this is happening. It's your gut telling you that, rip it all out. But who is it that comes in? Now, say had been Celtic who had went, okay, they've got a shark outside, right? We know it wasn't a shark, right? But say it was a shark, they're going, we'll just listen to them. Do you know what? And that night, you just seen a queue of that board walking out the door. Then what?
Yeah.
Then what? And I think you're absolutely spot on. This is where you've kind of just got to hold your nerve a wee bit. In Celtic's instance, they held their nerve, made a few tweaks. I described it as musical chairs at times, which after King Kenny put me in my place the other day, Steve, I'm already retracting my thoughts now, do you know what I mean? In case he's watching, you know what I mean? But I do think that I never had given enough care or thought, Steve-O, to, okay, you've got your way, Bhoycie. Now what? Yeah. And you'd be like, shit, because who then is making the calls as who comes on the board? Who are the people? Are they going to be qualified enough to do it? Are they going to be reckless? Are they going to be just nowhere near up to the job. Do they have contacts in the game? Are they going to be able to go, hey, by the way, you ever heard of a guy called Ange Postecoglou? I actually have a number for him. Are we going to ever have that situation where if you've done wholesale changes off the field? So I get why they're feeling the way they are, because they're confused.
Yeah.
The other side, right? Their fans are baffled that they felt there'd been a pendulum shift. I think we're now beginning to, and again, it sounds like I've got an agenda in favour of Neil Lennon, but a lot of what he said is kind of now becoming the reality that was a freak season. There was the amount of mitigating factors in that season will, if ever happen again, it would be once in a generation or a few generations, I think. So with that in mind, I think it was actually a benefit to Celtic that we didn't do what we're seeing right now. You know, I think there was another announcement last night of another boardroom member leaving. I feel like I'm being a hypocrite, because at the time I would have been all for it, Steve. I can't deny it, and I get why fans feel like that when your team.
No, I think everybody would have. You know, everybody, as you say, it is reactionary, and for us, it was in arguably the biggest season that we'd ever been in. It was huge, so of course it's going to be reactionary, and it's easy for us to sit here now and shoot the breeze, and you know, with a cold light of day, and look reflectively on it and say, "Oh, well, actually, it's not that bad." You know, that's not the reality. But the only thing that I would say is, then again, this is just my take. We're in two different worlds as two clubs, and I think had Celtic went for a massive shift and departure, the one thing that we did have was a we had a very stable business model, and we were good, found, you know, financially all right. We'd come out the back of COVID and stuff, but as we saw, with a negligible, like, £1 million loss or something like that. So we were in good health. The flip side over at Rangers, even now, is the business model isn't there, the debts are still there, and it's irrelevant because you don't have a magic wand. Rangers as a club in general across the board, they need to wrap everything up and start looking at being sustainable and growing. And that ain't going to happen like that. So they can bring all these guys in. But all that might do is, if they're better, is they need to build up over time and make the found solid. They're not going to change it overnight, is what I'm getting at. Whereas Celtic, for example, we had done that. We start on a better foot, and there's more potential for you to continue being successful you've done. So the two situations aren't overly comparable if you look at it in that respect. It's a new board coming into, you know, a fairly disastrous business setup and having to reinvent the wheel to try and make it grow. Whereas somebody comes into Celtic, the foundation, the blueprint's there. You've just got to either run with it. Obviously, as you said, that can come with risks. Guys could be reckless or whatever, but at least you've got a good starting point.
I think as well, it's weird because see everything you've just described there, though. And again, it sounds like I'm gloating. It's an observation. I would have thought when you're restarting, you're first formed, whatever way you want to describe it. But when you're in the fourth tier of Scottish football, Steve, that was the time to do that exactly what you just described there, and go, we'll still have enough to get through the leagues, right? But we could be extremely prudent financially. We could have a youth setup that has got loads of game experience against, you know, either part-time but former full-time footballers. Like, the development of the youth players could have been good, and I think you could have came into the league with a solid foundation. Instead, they'd press panic button after panic button, and by the time they'd came up, there was already sort of debt sitting there. And I think you're right. The business model at Celtic is one that I think, yes, has been successful in the spreadsheets, but it's there to provide a purpose in the park as well. And I think it'd be remiss of us not to say that the European stuff's not been good enough. And
no.
I think that's not been good enough. And actually, when you counter it, you could go, well, had you got better European results, had you invested more for Europe, those balance sheets could actually have been a hell of a lot healthier, because that's the rewards that you get for winning games in Europe and having success in those tournaments. I do think, though, that when it comes to wholesale changes like that, what we might see is maybe a lot of our fans just changing the narrative. I can feel myself doing it right now when we're talking about it and going, maybe in, you know, the 2020 season, you can kind of now reflect and go, did you really want us to get to the stage where it was that en masse changes? Would that have been a good thing for the club? Because I think it can leave you with basically, I'm trying to describe it in the right way here, like, you know, you're on a big massive ship but without a captain, do you know what I mean? Or whatever the saying is, do you know what I mean? There's
Without a rudder.
Without a rudderless, as Chris Sutton would say. And you don't want to end up in a situation where nobody knows what they're doing, or they're all new and the pressure's all ramped up on more than just one or two guys. I mean, you remember when Don Mackay came in? The heat that was on him, mate, from day one was unbelievable. He was like, the eyes are focused on everything he was doing, mate. And he knew, I think he probably, I don't know why he left. I'm not going to kid on that. I know people kid on, they know everything. They don't. But the one thing I would say about the Don Mackay thing is he must have had the biggest eye-opening in his life in those first 3 months as to, holy fuck, how bad was this last year? And that was just one. So you multiply that by 7 or 8, Steve-O.
Yeah.
And before you know it, it's absolute bonkers. It's carnage. And that is what's coming this summer for them. It might pay off. It might work out. But I think now, with hindsight, I'm glad we didn't push that button where the ejector seat on every single one of our board members, Steve. And I think that's what's led to us having Ange, and for us to regain our composure, regain our focus, and our space as the figurehead of Scottish football, and be back at the top tier of European football. It didn't actually take us much tweaking off the field as what we thought. We just happened to have a guy who may as well have had a magic wand in terms of what he did on the park, because the revolution there, I mean, I was saying to Jonathan last night, like, if you told us when we just think about that summer, right, that madness, sharks and all that, right, if you'd said, Steve-O, but seen 2 years, boys, we're going for a record points tally ever, you'd have got told to chase yourself, mate. Nobody's believing that.
No, I you know, the sort of finish up with what you're saying, it will be interesting. The summer's going to be interesting on both sides. It will be interesting for us because we'll be expecting growth, we'll be expecting investment and looking towards, you know, Europe in next season. And obviously, Rangers are looking for the same, but they're also looking for a new board, and there'll be changes there. But, you know, as you say about folk coming in, I just want to touch on something. Again, I've said this, for all that our board get, I'm not a board happy clapper. You know, I'll come on and I'll say my piece about the board, and I have many a times. But I think one thing about our board, or the way that we run our club, is we're a big club that maybe run ourselves in a slightly humble manner, in that we don't spend as much. You know, we're very cautious. We maybe undersell ourselves in that respect, whereas Rangers are, well, you can't deny it by name, they're still a big club, yes, but they've got I call it a superiority complex, where they just think this is what we do and spend. And touch on it, as you said, when they started out again, the sensible thing would have been to build on youth, maybe cherry pick players from the league that were in at the time and say, 1 year contract, if you're good, we'll maybe keep you on, and build, solid foundation. But no, superiority complex. We're Rangers, we're going to stay in fancy hotels overnight, hunters of private buses, fancy suits, guys for the SPFL, guys for abroad in our third division.
McGuinness was only 100 grand a year.
That's the two different worlds that we live in. Our board need to learn to be less humble and put themselves out there a wee bit more. Their board need to learn to come back a wee bit and play within the means and then build on it. So two different worlds, and it'll be interesting to see which one they get when the changes come.
Let's talk about the game then, because if we're being honest, we could look at this in a very optimistic way. Now, I'm not saying they're going bust or anything like that. Far from it. No. That's not what I'm saying. But we've not seen this sort of aggro or sort of conflict between fans and the club and all that that we've seen this season since 2012, I would say, right? I think this has been because the wheels have came off. So see, when you're still trying to get the wheels back on, you might be raging, and you might have that superiority complex. But at the back of your mind, you kind of know, fuck's sake, the banter years are still going on. But once you've had that taste of success, you feel like that's you back. You're in the alien, right? You're coasting again. So for that all to derail has caught them unawares and has led to a bit of a reaction. Could, though, this game on Sunday, if we were to score early, turn into a wee bit like that fix. Remember we beat them 3-0 and
Yeah.
they'd been used, they'd went into admin. And I'm not saying they're going into admin or anything like that. I just mean because there's that many the board have left, etc. There's nothing to play for them. We've already won the league. I've got vibes that it could be an afternoon like that if we were to get an early goal. And boy, oh boy, have we got the players to do it still, Steve-O. And I keep the fact, I've said this before the last 4 games, I think to you every time. We're due one, right?
You know, the game for me is quite compelling this weekend. And I've said this before, and, you know, it very much applies here. My opinion, Celtic are in a lose-lose situation once again. You know, we're victims by design of our successes. For me, Rangers, I'm more. This sounds silly. You're saying a Celtic boy. I'm more interested to see what Rangers do at the weekend than what we do, and I'll tell you why. Because for me, we're in a lose-lose position. But I think Rangers are in a win-win position. I'm sure Robert, as a Rangers fan, he'll be able to maybe give his opinion on that. And the reason I say that is Michael Beale last week made 5 changes. All right? He played Matondo, Sakala through the middle, Todd Cantwell up front, played Robbie McCrory in goals, made one other change I can't remember, right? So he set his stall out nice and early. Their fans have been shouting about, we want to bring through youth. We want to see what's there looking ahead to next season, right? He done that first game, and it was quite a big game, let's be honest. Now, he set out a stall there to say, this is who we are going to play at the weekend, right? Because my understanding is he's thrown Morelos under the bus, RIP. Kolak's no fit, so that's probably going to be their front line. Ryan Kent was thrown under the bus, so again, that's probably going to be their front line. So if you think about it, if we win and they play that side, then it's, well, you were always ahead of us. You know, we were trying out new things. The league was over. You know, if they win with that side, see, look, the future's bright. Like, you can't stop us, right? Equally, if they play the mainstays, they bring back all these guys and they get beat. Well, these guys have down tools. They're leaving. You know what I mean? But if they win, see, we could have done it all season. So Celtic can't really win. But they can. They've got all the bases covered once again. All eventualities for Rangers are covered. So I'm really interested to see, do they go with that same sort of team as last week? They're looking at the future, trying things out. And you could say it's either brave or stupid, or it's also maybe smart. Because if they put out a team like that and they get thumped, as much as we lap up, and we should,
their excuses are already in a row.
They get, you know, the ducks are all in a row for them. They've covered all the bases, in my opinion, but we're in, again, victims of our own success in a lose-lose situation. When it's almost expected, regardless of how the win goes down, lose, and, you know, well, we told you, we're back, we're coming back next season. So, but no, listen, as you say, are we due one? Absolutely. We've not really put in a swashbuckling solid performance since the first game at Parkhead at the beginning of the season. And it's going to be interesting for us because there is changes there as well. Obviously, we'll get, you know, Kobayashi's going to be in there. We don't have Johnson, so we're going to bring they two. I'm going to Rouse, I'm going to have him. And let's face it, if they play that front line that I mentioned, there's a lot of speed in there. And that's something that we've, you know, historically not been great at dealing with. So it's quite a compelling game, even though these games don't matter. Of course they matter. They absolutely matter. I saw some folk sort of misconstrued, but I said that when you asked about the penalties things. No, the game absolutely matters. What I mean when nobody cares is if you get a penalty away, it's just like...
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean, mate. I know exactly what you mean, Steve-O, with regards to the penalty stuff as well, because it's a dead rubber in terms of what outcome it can actually generate in terms of competition. It's already signed, sealed, delivered. Therefore, from the powers that be's point of view, I knew what you were saying. They're going, well, if ever we're going to give a penalty in it for Celtic, that's the one to pick out of all the fixtures.
No, there isn't any dead rubbers in the real sense. You know, these games are, you know, these are visceral, emotional derbies, and we as fans and everything, we want to win. Of course we do, and I'll be watching that game, and I'll want the best performance. I'm not going to walk away if we take a draw or were to lose, God forbid, and be all right with it. I'll be raging. But no, I think that the game at the weekend is very compelling just because, as I says, it's now a stage, well, we've been here before, but it doesn't matter in terms of the outcome of the season.
Yep.
But I'm very interested to see how they play it out more than how we play it out, because we'll do what we always do. You know, you can set your watch to it, what Celtic are going to do, but they're in a position to, again, try and spin a narrative, and that's what I'm interested in.
On the park, what do you think's been the biggest change since Beale came in terms of, we know what we did to Van Bronckhorst's side at the start of the season, the 4-0 game that you were alluding to. What do you think's been the biggest change? My takeaway from it is what he's set out to do in the last 4 games against us, which I think was a wee bit of a negative attitude to have when considering one was a League Cup final, one was a Scottish Cup semi-final in particular. But it seems to have been the most effective tactic he's used against us is sussing out how to prevent Celtic from being Celtic, if you like. Do you know what I mean? The Angie's Celtic that we know. And it looks like the tactic is to combat that, right? And it's to combat us doing the things that we're best at. And therefore, after that, you've then got up to a point where what do they then do? Their next step will be, what do we do then to affect the game when we get the ball? Now, of course, they could point to Sakala hitting the side net and chances like that. Okay. But there's loads of chances Celtic have also had in the last 4 fixtures that we've not took either. I feel that they've not done enough once they get the ball, and I feel a lot of that is because a lot of their energy is consumed. I think they're slightly fatigued by the time they get on the ball themselves, because they're so busy trying to chase our shadows and stop us doing what we do, which, by the way, has kept scores to such a level that despite the fact Beale hasn't won one, there was the 2-2 draw at Ibrox, there was the 2-1 in the end League Cup final win, which I thought was going to be, once we scored the second, go on to a greater score. You look at the recent fixtures, the 1-0 just the other week, and you go, what they've managed to do is keep a lid on it. They've kept a lid on it. They seem to keep the scores respectable, and there's not a caning like Gio got at the start of the season. I think that can just about keep their fans more on side as well. So I think on the park, it's interesting how Celtic now, do they, I think you've already touched on it, they won't change what they're doing, right? I think Celtic will play the exact same way. And it's now how we overcome Rangers' tactics of trying to stop us from being at our most effective. Because I think, to be fair, that's been the biggest difference I've seen since he's came in. He's focused on Celtic and stopping Celtic doing what they're good at. And then it's the next part of his puzzle is, what do we do once we get the ball in? How do we stop Celtic doing what they do without our energy levels dropping to what they are? Because obviously it's an exhausting process trying to get the ball off us. And it'll be that's the battle I'm fascinated to see. Can Celtic then raise it up another notch and make it that wee bit harder again for them, Steve-O? Just when they think, do you know what? We can suffocate them into just getting the odd goal win against us or a draw, and they've been lucky. And if that starts feeding into your mindset, you start going, we've got more of a handle on this fixture than what results might actually suggest.
Yeah.
Or can Celtic go up another level? Because I still think, despite the fact they've done okay in preventing us doing what we do best, I also think Celtic haven't been, I think they've been a wee bit under par so far in the fixtures this in 2023 against them. And I do think there's another gear we could find as well, which could give them another Rubik's Cube's worth of questions and answers to try and find.
Yeah, Mark's mentioned this a couple of times, and I wholeheartedly agree with him, is, whether you rate Rangers as a team or you rate Beale as a manager, there has been an improvement in them because, well, let's face it, the results have improved. What he's managed to do with them is unfashionable. He's just made them kind of more compact, a bit more sort of industrious, and, I say hard to break down. They're conceding goals, but they stay quite compact, quite in the midfield and stuff, and they try to stop, teams playing. And that's really the biggest thing they've done against us. If you look at their setup constantly, they always go with their 4 at the back, and then they've always had sort of 2 deep line midfielders right in front of them. So it's almost, for us, it's game management when they play us. They play to their opposition, they adapt to the opposition. And when that's us, as you say, that's quite simply about stifling the midfield, being hard in the tackle, being sort of robust, and trying to mitigate the attacks and try and keep the scores down. Now, you can say that's good, bad, or you're completely indifferent to the situation with it. I think they lack real quality and cutting edge. That's the difference. I think, we pose many problems to various teams regardless of our starting lineup or, our ability to bring folk on off the bench. As we've always said, we'll do what we're going to do, and it's up to you to deal with it. I think they'll very much do exactly as they do come the weekend. They'll probably pack out the midfield again, sit deep. But as I said, if they're going to play guys like Matondo, guys like Sakala, they're going to be looking for, when we're at the high line, advanced and getting in behind it, that's probably the way they're going to play. In terms of us, we kind of do evolve. The first season under Ange, we had a very, as you said, swashbuckling style. There was a lot of goals getting in. We weren't conceding too much at the back, but it was more about that forward attack. Now it's somewhere in between. We go through these points where we are still scoring a lot of goals, but what we've been is quite resolute defensively, and we've managed to battle through games and get, wins like that. I think there will be an evolution getting into next season, and that will just be with, again, additional personnel. Will the evolution be nut and bolts and complete, wow, this is completely different? I don't think so. I just think it's more about, for us, it's just about refreshing and giving new and fresh energy into a team. So 1 or 2 guys that are brought in, maybe replacing or an alternative from the bench. And I think we might, I've said that a good few times, we might see a formation change, but the core values of what we do will never really change. But, with Rangers, at the moment, they've got limited scope because they don't have that attacking ability and that, cutting edge that we have. So they can only play within their sort of, their abilities of what they've got. And so far, as I can see, for the past maybe 4 seasons or more, the game plan's been simple, compact, hard in the midfield, balls in the box. That is, let's be honest, that's what we're going to see at the weekend. We're just going to see balls getting shelled, either into the box for the wide areas, or, as I said, shelled up the park, hoping that one of the quicker forwards that they're more than likely to play are going to get in behind. So for us, I think that's pretty good. Changes or not, no matter who the personnel is, I think Rangers, exactly. People say you know what you're getting against us, you know what you're getting against Rangers. Stop the balls getting shelled and you'll not have any issues.
Yeah, and then
I've yet to be proven other things.
Get it to Tavernier as fast as you can and try and get him to whip a ball in the box. They do that.
Connor Goldson, he likes to pick the ball up for his own box and just case one right up the top,
I lunch it. Totally, mate. Anyway, that's about 25 past 9. We'll call it there, Steve. Well, like I say, we're doing that many shows just now. We're going to try and maybe stop going. I mean, the PMP is just a joke, man. We end up on that for 2.5 hours at times. But the shows, I think now we'll try and limit it to under an hour. Do you know what I mean? We'll try and do that, mate. Because we want to keep the content as fresh as possible and as regular as possible. But before you know it, if we're on an hour and a half, we cover all bases in one show, and then the next one's kind of you're scraping about for chat. But that was brilliant this morning. Love that, mate. And yes, all eyes on Saturday. Very much looking forward to it. Are you back in the hot seat tomorrow? Are you missing in action this week? You working?
I'm back shift, so I will be around. I can do Monday lunch if you're running that, and then I'll be around at the weekend if there's maybe Saturday or Sunday. But I'll be back next Thursday for hosting. So
the TNF magic, mate.
Yeah.
No, look forward to it all, pal. No worries at all. Well, enjoyed your company this morning, Steve-O. Big thanks to you. Big shout to our sponsors, ED Pharmacy. Remember, go check them out. Don't be a flop like Reggie Blinker.
I mean, you've all that stuff at the start. You know, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.